The ship had been above their parliament for 19 days, and not one senator inside had looked up. 51 human vessels were holding position in 6 directions around the Sarathi home system. The compact sensor grid had found them 17 times over 27 years and decided, each time, that the readings were interference. The 11 human systems marked for extraction had been reclassified in 11 minutes. The ship above the dome had recorded every word. At 06:14 Karath Standard Time, the communications officer on the Ironhold Meridian reported that the standard diplomatic channel was open and ready. Admiral Vera Osaimanu did not look up from her cup. No name, no title, no second sentence. That was the whole message. 22 words sent on the standard channel, originating from a point 2,600 meters above the Sarathi legislature. The compact's communications staff spent 4 minutes trying to find the source. The source was directly overhead. The compact didn't know what was up there. You do, stay close because they're about to find out. What happened in the next 6 hours would create a new tier in the Galactic Central Registry, end 27 years of silence, and put 7 names on a stone in a colony square that had spent 11 minutes classified as a resource extraction zone. But to understand any of it, you have to go back. Not to the vote, not even to the fleet. You have to go back to a stamp. 27 years, 4 months, and some days before the transmission, a junior assessor in the Sarathi Compact Species Registry Division processed a standard tier classification for a species called humanity. Her name was Aileen Varu. She was 24 years old. She had been in the position for 6 weeks. The file was straightforward, or it looked that way. Humanity had been traveling between star systems for about 94 years. Their declared fleet was listed under a program called the Outer Reach Survey, 62 ships, mostly long-range civilian hull classification. Their home system was documented. Their communication patterns were on file. A deep scout probe had visited their space 89 years earlier and returned a single-line assessment. Primitive, no strategic value, no further investigation recommended. Aileen Varu stamped the file Tier 4, peripheral, survey-grade presence. She did not read the white paper attached to the registry entry. It was 43 pages long, filed openly by the human government under their own species header, and it described, in plain technical language, the active fleet composition of something they called the United Earth Survey Vessel Program. Armament ratings, crew complements, displacement ranges, deep range positioning capability. She had 6 other files to process that morning. The stamp went through, the file was closed. 4 light-years away, in the city that served Harrow Station 7's residential district, a woman named Vera Osaimanu was 29 years old and had just received her first classified operational directive. She read it twice, then she read it once more. Then she put it down on the table and looked out the window at the station's artificial rain cycle, which was running 11 minutes behind schedule. The directive was not an order exactly. It was a possibility. It said, if certain conditions were ever met, the following ships would be needed in the following positions. It listed 51 vessels. It listed 6 vectors surrounding a specific star system. It listed a holding duration of up to 30 years. She folded the directive and put it in her inside pocket. She was not yet an admiral. She had no cup on the shelf. But she went to find her brother that afternoon, and they sat in the station's lower common room and drank bad coffee, and he told her about the survey relay they were about to staff. Outer corridor, 3-person posting. Quiet work, he said. I like quiet work. His name was Kofi. He was 22. Aileen Varu submitted her first formal deferral request, 7 years into her career. By then, she had read the white paper. She had also read 6 subsequent human government filings, each one updating the fleet composition data. The most recent listing showed 62 ships, but the transit logs for the Outer Reach Survey Program showed 51 of those vessels had not returned to any registered human port in between 4 and 11 years. 51 ships, no logged destination, no logged return. She wrote the deferral request in precise administrative language. She noted the transit anomalies. She noted that the 89-year-old probe report was now 89 years out of date. She noted that the classification was based on data that predated humanity's current deep range program by decades. The request was received. It was stamped. It was placed in a review queue. The queue had not been opened in 3 years. Operation Long Ledger had no public name. It had no public anything. What it had was a classified directive, a set of coordinates, and 51 ships registered as civilian exploration vessels under the Outer Reach Survey Program. The repositioning had taken 4 years. The holding had taken the next 23. The ships had been sitting in deep space, running on minimum power at 6 points surrounding the Sarathi home system, for long enough that several of their original crew members had retired, transferred to other posts, and in 2 cases died of unrelated causes. The crews rotated on 3-year cycles. The transit ships that swapped them in and out carried no markings. The Sarathi compact sensor grid had picked up the fleet 17 times. Each contact was logged, reviewed, and classified as deep field interference or residual probe echo. The review process took, on average, about 4 minutes per contact. No investigation was ever initiated. No analyst was ever assigned. 17 times over 23 years, the readings were right there. 17 times, someone looked at the numbers and decided the source was too small to have written something worth reading. The Ironhold meridian was 3.4 kilometers long. Island Voru did not know this when it was holding position 2,600 meters above her workplace. She did not know its crew numbered 8,900. She did not know its cloaking array was the 7th generation of a classified engineering program that had been in continuous development for 36 years. First tested in a dry dock on the far side of Jupiter, tested again and again and again in the dark between systems where no one was watching. What she knew was that session 5847 was running 11 minutes late because someone had double-booked the administrative recess with the Compact's founder cycle commemorative meal period, and the chamber staff had begun setting out the food before anyone noticed the conflict. She was sitting in the observer's gallery with her hands in her lap, watching the servers move between the tables below. The session was called to order at 09:11. Primarch Assessor Davrek Soon was 2.3 meters tall, with a ridge crest that ran from his ear to his collarbone and a set of bilateral photoreceptors positioned wide across his face for panoramic threat detection. He had held his current position for 19 years. In that time, he had personally reviewed 0 survey files. His ridge crest was holding amber, which was his resting state. He stood at the session podium and called the agenda items in order, each one completed with formal Sarathi cadence before the next began. He did not interrupt himself. He did not ask questions of the chamber. His sash carried 7 merit clasps, each one representing a successfully processed reclassification. Item 6D was listed between a postponed trade recess and the founder cycle meal period. It was titled, Outer Corridor Designation Review Tier Adjustment, Systems 14A through 14K. Island Voru had submitted a formal deferral request for this item. She had submitted one the year before as well. The first had been placed in a review queue that had not been opened in 4 years. The second had been placed in the same queue. Soon called the item. He did not read the deferral requests into the record. They were technically in the queue, technically received, technically not ignored. 3 senators were looking at personal communication devices when the vote was called. The vote was 38-0. No debate, no amendment, no deferral read into the record. 11 human-occupied systems, 3.8 billion people, were reclassified as Tier 0 extraction corridors in 11 minutes. Island Voru did not blink for the full 11 minutes. Her photoreceptors held open 4 seconds longer than their normal cycle, then 6, then 8. She had been doing the extended blink hold for 24 years. It was the thing her body did when she was being told, without words, that she was incorrect. Today was the first time. It had lasted 11 straight minutes. The servers finished setting out the food. The session moved to the commemorative meal recess. 4 light-years away, a courier arrived at Harrow Station 7's residential transit level and found the apartment he was looking for. He knocked. He did not say the occupant's rank when she opened the door. He handed her one document. She was 60 years old. She read the document standing in the doorway. Then she went to the kitchen shelf and took down a ceramic field cup. Standard survey program issue, dented at the base from a drop she had never bothered to explain. The inner rim was stained dark from 12 years of mineral-heavy station water, a ring that had deepened and settled into the ceramic the way certain things settle, not by choice but by time. She took the cup the way a person takes something they intend to carry to the end of a thing. She filled it with cold water. She put on her jacket, an old one, no rank markings, no insignia of any kind. Then she walked to the transit dock. She had not been ordered to go. The courier had not used her rank because the operational clock had been running for 27 years and it did not need a new order. It needed a confirmation that the moment had arrived. The moment had arrived. The iron-hold meridian had been holding position for 19 days when the power fluctuation hit the signal deck. The automated logging system went dark for 43 minutes. Every timestamp, every transmission record, every sensor ping would have been lost, except that the junior communications technician on duty that shift did not wait to see if the system would recover on its own. His name was Rael Dunmore. He was 23 years old and had been on the iron-hold meridian for 8 months. He picked up a pen and opened a blank log sheet and started writing by hand. Timestamps, transmission records. The Sarathi Senate's own communications array was bouncing signals off the hull at 2,600 meters and getting clean null returns, interference. The array would have logged them as residual echo, and Rael wrote every one down. The time, the source, the result. When the automated system came back up 43 minutes later, the log was unbroken. He was still writing the last entry when the Admiral walked through. She stopped. She looked at the handwritten log for a moment, really looked at it, the way you look at something that did what it was supposed to do. She said nothing. She went to the water dispenser at the back of the deck, refilled her cup, and walked on. Rael Dunmore had not known, before this posting, that the ship's passive acoustic sensors were good enough to record a floor session of the Sarathi legislature from 2,600 meters above the dome. He knew it now because he had been listening for 19 days. He had heard session 5,844, session 5,845, session 5,846, all of them routine, trade items, administrative reviews, scheduling conflicts, a long debate about water reclamation credits for one of the outer member species. Session 5,847 had run 11 minutes late and then processed item 6D in 11 minutes and then broken for the meal. He had written that down too, not because he was ordered to, because it seemed like the kind of thing that should be in a record somewhere. The automated system had captured it, of course, but his handwritten version was cleaner. Here is something the Sarathi Compact had access to and had not read. 16 months before the vote, a human government body had filed an updated fleet composition document in the Galactic Central Registry under the Tier 4 species header. The document was 41 pages. It listed the active vessel count of the United Earth Survey Vessel Program, 62 ships, along with displacement ranges, armament ratings, crew complements, and a section titled Deep Range Positioning Capability that ran to 11 pages on its own. A compact archive clerk had downloaded the document in the ordinary course of record maintenance. The clerk had flagged it non-urgent. The clerk had filed it without reading it. The armament ratings described ships capable of sustained engagement at Galactic Corridor range. The positioning section described, in plain technical language, the operational doctrine of a fleet designed to hold deep space coordinates for extended periods without resupply. It was not hidden. It was not classified. It was not written in a language the Compact could not read. It was filed under the species header that read, in the Compact's own administrative shorthand, Tier 4, Peripheral Survey Grade Presence, Low Priority, No Further Investigation Recommended. They had every document. They had every number. They simply decided the source was too small to have written something worth reading. Island Varu submitted her second formal deferral request 11 years into her career. And her third 3 years after that. The third was the one she had hand-delivered to Soon's administrative office because she had grown tired of watching requests vanish into queues. She had stood in the outer office for 20 minutes while a staff member confirmed receipt. She had watched the staff member stamp it, write a reference number, and place it in a tray. The tray was labeled, Pending Review Non-Urgent. When will it be reviewed? She had asked. When it reaches the front of the queue, the staff member had said, which was technically an answer. Soon had passed through the outer office while she was still there. He had looked at her for a moment. He had told her in his formal completed sentence cadence that the outer corridor transit anomalies she had flagged were background noise. That treating background noise as signal was a category error. That the Tier 4 classification had been reviewed within the last decade and found to be appropriate. His Ridgecrest had been amber the whole time, resting state, unbothered. The probe report is 89 years old, Island Voru had said. Species don't change that quickly, Soon had said. He had walked on. The 51 ships in the outer vectors had been in position for 27 years. The oldest crew members currently aboard had been 12 years old when the first ship took up its holding coordinate. The youngest had not been born yet. The missions rotated on 3-year cycles. Crews transferred in and out through unmarked transit ships that filed no special documentation. Just routine crew exchange paperwork that no one in the compact had ever cross-referenced with the transit log anomalies that Island Voru had flagged in her first report. The compact's sensor grid had registered the fleet 17 times. 17 times, the contact was logged, reviewed, and marked as interference. On the Ironhold Meridian, on day 17 of the hold above Karath Dome, Rail Dunmore had found the compact's own contact log in an open registry database. It was public record, filed, and accessible, and had gone back through all 17 entries. He had not shown it to the Admiral. He had filed it in his personal research folder, marked it with the date, and gone back to his signal desk. Some things did not need to be pointed out. They just needed to be known. The morning after session 5847, at 06:22 Karath Standard Time, every communications array in the Sarathi Compact's legislative complex received a signal on the standard diplomatic channel. The signal came from an unregistered source. The Compact's communications staff ran a triangulation. It took 4 minutes. The result came back clean and clear and completely impossible. The source was 2,600 meters above the dome. The message was 22 words. Rescind the reclassification of the 11 outer corridor systems. Release all transit holds immediately. You have 6 hours. No name, no title, no second sentence. Primarch Assessor soon listened to it twice. His Ridgecrest stayed amber the first time. It shifted slightly toward copper on the second. He looked at his communications staff. He asked for the source to be confirmed. They confirmed it. He looked at the ceiling of his office, which was also the floor of the legislative dome, which was also, apparently, 2,600 meters below something he had no record of. He looked at the ceiling for a long time. Then he dictated a response. The Sarathi Compact did not negotiate with unregistered signals. If a vessel existed at the given coordinates, it would be removed within 20 minutes. His staff transmitted the response. He told his fleet commander to scramble. 44 Sarathi warships launched from the orbital platform at 06:31. Standard intercept formation, full weapons complement. They reached the given coordinates in 16 minutes. There was nothing on any sensor. The formation held position. The pilots checked their readings twice, then 3 times. One of them, a 12-year veteran named Osif Tron, later reported that the moment that stayed with him was not what came next. It was the 16 minutes of nothing. Because the nothing was not empty, it had weight to it, the way a room has weight right before someone in it speaks. The Ironhold Meridian decloaked at 06:49. The hull came into the light bow first. It took 11 seconds. That is not a long time, normally. But the 44 Sarathi warship pilots hovering at that coordinate would later describe it as the longest 11 seconds of their careers, and 3 of them used the same word without having spoken to each other first. The word was still. The ship did not shake into view. It did not flicker. It resolved, section by section, the way a fact resolves when you finally understand it has always been true. 3.4 kilometers, 2,600 meters above the dome. The cloaking array released from bow to stern in a slow, deliberate wave, as if the ship had chosen the pace of its own appearance. Osif Tron, the 12-year veteran, held his position. Every pilot around him held position. Nobody gave an order to hold. Nobody needed to. He said later that the closest thing he had to a comparison was a mountain. Not the appearance of a mountain. Not a mountain rising from the ground. A mountain that had been there the whole time, that the ground had simply chosen to stop hiding. Mountains do not require engagement decisions. The outer vector signal arrived on every compact communications channel at the same moment. The iron-hulled Meridian finished its 11-second reveal. 51 vessels, 7 directions. Each one transmitted the same 3 things: its registry number, its armament classification, and a single timestamp, the date it had taken up its current holding position. The transmissions were formatted as standard registry pings. Clean, no threats, no demands, just data. The oldest timestamp read, 27 years, 4 months, 19 days. In the communications wing of the legislative complex, a duty officer named Seville pulled up the timestamp log and looked at it for a long time. Then she pulled up the compact's own sensor contact records from the past 27 years. She found 17 entries, each one listed as deep field interference, each one timestamped. She matched them one by one against the fleet's registry pings. 17 contacts, 17 matches, perfect overlap. The ships had been there for every single one. She did not report this immediately. She sat with it for about 3 minutes, which was not standard protocol. Then she filed the comparison as an addendum to the contact log, marked it urgent, and sent it to the Primarch Assessor's office. It was, she noted in the addendum, the first time the compact's sensor grid had correctly identified the source of a contact reading for any of those 17 events. It had just taken them 27 years to check. Primarch Assessor soon received the addendum at 0847. He read it once. His ridgecrest moved from amber to copper and held there. He had 7 merit clasps on his administrative sash. Each one represented a successfully processed reclassification. He had never, in 19 years of office, personally reviewed the underlying survey data before approving a reclassification. The process did not require it. The process had been designed not to require it, because requiring it would have slowed the process down. He set the addendum on his desk and straightened the sash. All 7 clasps in order, left to right. Then he went to his window and looked at the sky above Karath Dome, which was, at this moment, technically occupied. The 6-hour window expired at 12:22 Karath Standard Time. The reclassification order had not been rescinded. Admiral Vera Osaimanu was sitting in the command chair of the iron-hulled Meridian. Her cup was on the armrest. She had refilled it twice since the decloak. She gave one instruction. The ship's forward survey array was a civilian-grade instrument. Technically, it had been built for planetary surface mapping, reading geological formations, identifying mineral deposits, returning structural files on terrain features. It was very good at its job. It executed a passive scan of the Sarathi Compact's orbital defense platform and returned a complete structural file in 4 minutes. The file included a load-bearing fault in the platform's lower support ring. The fault was not new. The structural analysis dated it to approximately 190 years before the current session. The support ring had been installed during the platform's original construction and had never been modified. The fault was not immediately dangerous, but it was the kind of fault that, under sustained stress, would become dangerous. The engineering notes in the file recommended repair within the next 2 to 5 years. The Admiral looked at the file for about 30 seconds. Then she told her communications officer to transmit it to Karath Dome on an open channel. The label on the transmission read, "Routine survey return, anomaly flagged for recipient review, no urgency implied." Island Voru was still in the observer's gallery when the transmission arrived. She was not supposed to still be there. The session had broken for the meal period 6 hours earlier, but she had not left. She had sat in the gallery through the meal, through the recall to session, through Soon's emergency briefing to the full chamber, through the legal team's rapid review of the compact's options. There were not many options. The fleet was there. The armament ratings were real. The structural report on the orbital platform was accurate. 3 engineers had checked it in the 2 hours since the transmission and confirmed the fault independently. And the compact had on file in its own species registry the full fleet composition document that humanity had filed 16 months ago. It listed the armament ratings. It listed the deep-range positioning capability. It had been downloaded by an archive clerk and filed without being read. There will be no claim of surprise. There will be no claim of deception. There will be no argument that the information was hidden. The information had been in the registry, in the Tier 4 species file. under the header that read, "Low priority, no further investigation recommended." At 12:37 Karath Standard Time, Primarch Assessor soon called the reclassification order for rescission. The vote was 38-0. It took 7 minutes. 4 minutes faster than the vote to reclassify. Island Voru sat in the gallery and watched it happen. She did not blink on her normal cycle. Her photoreceptors held open, 4 seconds longer than standard 6-8. This time, she was not being told she was wrong. This time, it meant something different. The transit holds on the 11 outer systems were released at 12:51. The Ironhold Meridian did not move. It held position at 2,600 meters above Karath Dome for another 4 hours, which was not part of any documented protocol. Rail Dunmore logged the extra hold time by hand because he had started to prefer his handwritten log to the automated system. The automated system recorded what happened. The handwritten log recorded that it happened, and also that the ship was still there, and that the still being there was itself a kind of statement. The 51 outer vector ships did not return to any registered port. They returned to their holding coordinates. The fleet went quiet again, running on minimum power, waiting in the way that things wait when they are not waiting for anything in particular, but are simply present, because presence is sometimes the whole point. Primarch Assessor soon requested a meeting. He sent the request through formal diplomatic channels, which was the correct procedure, and Admiral Osaimanyu agreed within the hour, which was faster than formal procedure required. They met in a small room on the legislative complex's lower level. Administrative hearing room, standard configuration, 1 table, 2 chairs, a window that looked out over the city. The kind of room where nothing important was supposed to happen. Osaimanyu arrived first. She was wearing the same jacket she had put on at Harrow Station 7. No rank markings, no insignia. She had no aides with her. She set the ceramic cup on the table, both hands around it, and waited. Soon entered with 3 aides. He stopped when he saw her. He looked at her for a long moment, at the jacket, at the cup, at the fact that she had arrived first and was not sitting the way someone sits when they are waiting to be impressed. He straightened his sash, all 7 clasps. Then he sat down across from her. He asked why. His formal Sarathi cadence, every sentence completed before the next began, made the question precise. He asked if the capability had existed for 27 years, if the ships had been in position for 27 years, if the fleet had been funded and crewed and rotated and maintained for 27 straight years. Why had none of it ever been used before? Why this moment? Why not earlier? Osaimanyu picked up the cup. She drank once. She set it down. She did not hurry. We didn't wait for power. We didn't wait for the right chance. We waited to find out if a moment like this one would ever come. It took 27 years, she said. We had time. His ridge crest held copper. His 3 aides did not move. She did not add anything. The room held the silence the way a room holds silence when the answer has been given, and everyone present understands that no follow-up question will improve on it. The geometry of the room had finished the sentence. One of Soon's aides filed a classified summary of the meeting later that afternoon. The summary was 4 paragraphs long. The 3rd paragraph had a single line redacted, not by Soon, not by any authority in that room, and not by anyone who had been authorized to redact anything in that document. No one ever identified who made the redaction, or what the original line had said. The Compact's Intelligence Directorate began its internal review the following week. 53 species designated Tier 4 or below were flagged for reassessment. The review was not announced publicly. It was institutional, procedural, and thorough in the way that organizations are thorough when they have recently discovered that their procedures were the problem. Island Voru was appointed to lead the review commission. The role had not existed before that week. It was created for the purpose, staffed immediately, and given a budget that would have funded her previous department's entire operating year. She received the appointment notice on a Tuesday afternoon. She read it twice. Then she filed her first formal action as commission lead, a request that the review queue, the one containing her 3 deferral requests, along with 417 others going back 19 years, be opened, catalogued, and addressed in full. It was, technically, the first time anyone had opened that queue in 7 years. Soon filed no comment on her appointment. The Galactic Central Registry's Species Classification Division worked for 11 days before concluding that no existing tier adequately described humanity's operational profile. They created Tier 6. The designation read, Established Presence, Long-Duration Positioning. It was the first new tier added to the registry in 40 years. A senior archivist noted in the internal log that the tier had been, functionally, accurate for 27 years. Humanity had simply not needed anyone to recognize it. No one argued the point. The Compact's Naval Officers Academy added one line to its strategic assessment module the following term. The line read, before designating a species as low priority, confirm the date of the most recent assessment. Confirm what they have published openly in the Central Registry. Then ask yourself what is not visible on your sensors and whether that is because it is not there or because it chose not to be. The line was not attributed to anyone. It did not need to be. 6 weeks after session 5847, on a Tuesday morning in the outer corridor, a woman named Delia Asantua stood in the central square of Outer Mark 9 colony. She was 68 years old. She had lived on Outer Mark 9 for 31 years. She ran a small hardware supply operation out of a building on the square's east side, and she had been on the colony's informal planning committee for long enough that she had helped design the square itself, including the small raised platform at its center that had been built 12 years ago for a purpose that had never quite arrived. The purpose had arrived now. She checked the time on her wristwatch. It was 0900. She had chosen a Tuesday specifically. She had not explained to anyone why she chose a Tuesday. The stone marker was not large. It was local mineral stone, cut flat, set into the platform at a slight angle so it caught the morning light. 7 names were cut into the surface. She stepped to the side. She nodded to the man standing at the small reading podium. He began to read the names. Yemi Adibola, Freya Larson, Kai Sorensen, Nneka Ezali, Dr. Peter Marku, Lian Tran, Kofi Osaimanyu. Kofi had been 31 years old. He had liked quiet work. He had staffed a survey relay station in the outer corridor for 2 years before the first compact deep probe swept through the system and the station went dark. The incident had been classified. The families had been notified privately. The system had been logged in Operation Long Ledger's operational file as the reason the 6-hour window had been set at 6 hours and not fewer. Admiral Vera Osaimanyu stood at the back of the small crowd. She was wearing the same jacket, no insignia. The cup was in her hands. When the reader got to his name, she did not look away. She did not speak. She did not look away. She did not drink from the cup. She held it with both hands while they read his name, and she kept holding it after, while the crowd was quiet, and while Delia Asantua walked back to the platform and pressed one hand briefly to the surface of the stone. Rael Dunmore was standing 4 meters to the Admiral's left. He had requested leave for the occasion, and the request had been approved without comment. He had taken the transit to Outer Mark 9 on his own time and stood in the back of the crowd in plain clothes and watched. He did not write anything in his log that day. He had thought about it. He had his notebook in his jacket pocket. But some things were already recorded in the stone, in the Galactic Central Registry, in 43 minutes of handwritten timestamps, in 27 years of sensor pings that had come back null, in a review queue that now had someone in charge of opening it. The crowd dispersed slowly. People stood in small groups and talked quietly. Delia Asantua accepted a handshake from a man Rael didn't recognize, then went back to her building on the east side of the square. The Admiral stayed. She walked to the stone and read each name in the surface. Her finger did not touch the stone. She just read them, one by one, the way you read something you have known for a long time and are only now allowed to say out loud. Then she walked back across the square toward the transit dock, the cup still in her hand, the morning light coming flat across the colony rooftops and catching the mineral stain at the rim, dark, settled, the color of something that had been there for 12 years and was not going anywhere.